You know that feeling, right? That knot in your stomach, the thoughts that just won't stop racing, that sense that something is just off? We've all been there. It's anxiety, and it's one of those things that connects all of us, even when it feels like we're totally alone in it. But what if we could look at it through two completely different lenses?
So, what is it really? Is anxiety just a glitch in our system, a biological bug we need to fix, or could it actually be a feature? A signal that's trying to tell us something important? In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into both of these ideas, pulling from what modern psychology tells us and what the Quran has taught for centuries.
Okay, so first up, let's put on our science goggles. From a psychological point of view, anxiety is basically our brain's built-in alarm system. I'm talking about that fight or flight response. It's an ancient tool that literally kept our ancestors alive when they were face-to-face with, a predator.
But here's where things can get a little messy in the modern world. See, for some of us, that alarm system gets way too sensitive. The part of your brain that handles fear, the amygdala, it gets stuck in overdrive. It starts overestimating every little threat. And suddenly, a deadline at work or a tough email can feel just as terrifying as a tiger in the grass, flooding your body with stress hormones when there's no actual danger.
And you can see right here just how completely that faulty alarm can hijack your whole system. First, it hits you mentally. Your thoughts get all tangled up, you're afraid of losing control. Then your body gets the memo. Your heart starts racing, your muscles get super tense. And finally, it changes what you do. You start avoiding things, which, over time, can make your world feel a lot smaller. It's a full-body takeover.
So if the problem is a system that's malfunctioning, it makes sense that psychology would come up with tools to manage it, right? To kind of reboot the system. And one of the simplest, most powerful ones is a grounding technique called the 3-3-3 rule. It's designed to pull your brain right out of that anxious spiral.
And here's how it works. It's so incredibly easy. The moment you feel that anxiety creeping in, you just pause. Name 3 things you can literally see around you. Then, listen. Identify 3 sounds you can actually hear. And finally, move 3 parts of your body. Wiggle your fingers, roll your shoulders, whatever. What this does is pretty brilliant. It acts like a pattern interrupt, forcing your brain to stop worrying about what if and focus on what is, right here and right now.
All right, now let's completely switch gears. Let's look at this exact same feeling, but through the Islamic framework. From this perspective, anxiety isn't a malfunction or a disorder. It's actually seen as a message, a kind of test that's meant to help you grow spiritually.
Now, this framework makes a really critical distinction. That paralyzing, worldly fear that we usually call anxiety, that's actually discouraged. But there's another kind of fear, called khawf. And this isn't meant to be terrifying, it's more of a directional fear. It's a force that's supposed to guide you towards safety and what's right, not leave you frozen in place.
And this isn't about just ignoring the feeling, not at all. The Quran is super clear that anxiety is a totally normal part of being human. There's this one verse that says humans will for sure be tested with things like fear. Now, just by framing it as a test, the whole experience changes, doesn't it? It stops being this random, chaotic thing and becomes something with a purpose.
And just like psychology has its toolkit, this framework has its own powerful spiritual practices. You've got dhikr, which is remembering God, and it acts like a mental anchor in a storm. There's du'a, or supplication, which is like having a direct conversation to hand over your biggest worries. And then there's tawakkul, which is this profound act of trusting the plan, and it frees you from the burden of trying to control everything.
This verse right here is really at the center of it all. It says that remembering God is how hearts find peace. And what's wild is that some recent studies are even pointing to how practices like this can help balance brain waves and lower stress. It's seen as a kind of direct therapy for the soul, a way to cut through the noise in your own head and connect to something serene and powerful.
Okay, so we've got these two really compelling ways of understanding the exact same feeling. Let's put them side by side so we can really see the differences and similarities. This is maybe the best way to sum it up. The psychological view sees anxiety as a faulty alarm system. It's broken, it's ringing for no reason, and the goal is to fix it or at least quiet it down. The Islamic view, on the other hand, sees anxiety more like a spiritual compass. Yeah, the needle is shaking, but it's pointing you towards something. The goal isn't to break the compass, it's to learn how to read it.
This table just lays it all out perfectly. Look at the view of fear itself. Psychology often sees it as a pathology, something to be managed. The Islamic framework sees it as a directional signal. Where the response to stress, psychology focuses on grounding yourself and coping. The Islamic framework focuses on reliance and letting go of control. It's two fundamentally different approaches to why we feel what we feel.
So does this mean you have to choose a side? Absolutely not. In fact, maybe the most powerful path forward is one that actually integrates both of these perspectives, finding that sweet spot between practical action and spiritual trust.
There's this piece of prophetic wisdom that just captures this idea perfectly. Tie your camel and then trust in Allah. It's so beautiful because it's all about balance. You don't just leave your camel out in the desert and hope for the best. No, you take the practical step. You do what you can do. You tie the camel. Then you place your trust in a higher power for the things you can't control.
So, what does tying your camel look like for us today with anxiety? Well, it's a two-part strategy. Use your spiritual tools. You pray, you practice remembrance, and you take practical action. You seek help from therapists, doctors, and friends. Use grounding techniques like the 3-3-3 rule. They're not mutually exclusive at all. In fact, they're complementary. They work together. So after all this, after looking through these two different lenses, what's the big takeaway? Where does this leave us? I think it comes down to a really important shift in how we relate to anxiety itself.
Look, the point of this whole thing isn't to declare a winner. It's not psychology versus Islam. It's to show that for this universal human struggle, we have a bigger toolbox than we sometimes realize. Psychology gives us incredible tools for managing a body and brain that are out of whack. And faith-based frameworks give us a profound way to find meaning in that struggle. Both are valuable.
And that leaves us with one final question to really think about. No matter what you call it, a test, a signal, a biological response, what happens to our anxiety when we stop trying to just get rid of it, and instead we get curious and try to understand it? How does searching for meaning actually transform the struggle itself?